Hello and welcome to the first edition of the Lockett Up podcast. I am John Kurtz. I am joined by Aaron Lockett, who will be the regular co-host here on this podcast, and we are very proud to be a part of KCSN. And our first guest is Tyler Lockett, so we're going Lockett squared right out of the chute, starting this podcast with a bang. We're going to talk with current Seattle Seahawks and obviously K-State legend Tyler Lockett here in just a second. The podcast is brought to you by 360 Vodka. It's the world's first eco-friendly vodka, crafted to be as good for the planet as it is to drink. American-made and American-owned, this premium vodka is made with locally sourced Midwestern corn and is naturally gluten-free. 6 times distilled and 6 times filtered, 360 Vodka is smooth, clean, and green. Certainly appreciate their support as we get this going, but Aaron, I'm fired up about this. I have worked with Kevin Lockett on a radio show in the past, so now it's just completing the holy trinity here as we start with Tyler. We have you as well, but welcome to the podcast. Why don't you update everybody, K-State fans that have not been in touch with you on what it is that you're up to these days?
I'm doing big things, so I'm enjoying myself. It's been a while since I've had opportunity to play for Kansas State, but obviously through Tyler, had a chance to watch K-State from 2011 to 2015, but I'm actually in the process of getting ready to launch my own sports agency. So excited because Next Page Sports has got a marketing arm, is representing football and basketball players along with the coaching division. So excited to jump into the new world.
Well, we're excited to have you, and I'm sure that your number one client here is excited to talk with you as well. In Tyler Lockett. Tyler, appreciate the time and joining us here on the podcast. First of all, I think that has to be the first question, right? What's it like working with your uncle in this capacity?
Well, I think it's a really cool experience. Obviously, we got the family legacy going on, but being able to kind of get into the family type of business era, I think that's something that's really cool. My uncle wanted to be able to just branch out and kind of figure out what he was passionate about, energetic about, what was his true purpose. And for me to be in a position I'm in and for him to be able to launch something that's going to be truly special, thought it was a great opportunity that he wanted to even have me as his first client. Sometimes people don't even want to start that way. They want to go get it their own way. And just the fact that he wanted to start off with me, I mean, what better way up than to just that? I didn't want to pass on it.
So Tyler, you're coming up on year 7 in the NFL. So tell me what it's been like to transition from a receiver that started off as a third, fourth guy, return guy, to now being one of the main guys for the offense. How does that feel, and what are some of the things you're using to stay successful?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been great. Obviously, I don't think it's what I always wanted. You always want to go in and just be the person right off the bat. And sometimes, even when me and you talk, you start to realize that a lot of it is based off of timing and as well as opportunity. So all you can really do is just prepare yourself for the time that you do get the chance to be able to be whatever it is that you desire to be or you see yourself being. So for me, I think the transition was something that I had to learn how to adjust to because I pulled out different aspects of my game that may have looked different than it was at Kansas State. A lot of the things that we won in Seattle looked different than what I was used to at Kansas State. And so some of the things that I do really good at, I had to put on the back burner in order to be able to be as great as I could be in the offense that we had. And so I had to learn how to adjust. I had to learn how to be good in a lot of different areas that maybe I didn't focus on as much at Kansas State. And I developed different techniques and different tools that allowed me to be successful. And so now having the chance to go into this year, we got a different offensive coordinator. We're changing a lot of stuff up, and a lot of stuff is going to look different. And so now I feel like I have a lot more freedom to be the player that I always knew that I could be. And sometimes I put on a back burner because I knew that I couldn't be the person that I knew I could be based off of how we designed things to work during a couple of my years being there.
How motivated were you by, I can remember just talking to a guy who covered the Seahawks when you were drafted and was asking him about what the impact would be, and he's talking about special teams, right? Hey, this guy can come in and help us on special teams. How motivated were you by some of that talk when you came in? Hey, this will be a return guy as opposed to now one of the best receivers in the league.
Well, I knew I wasn't ever going to be considered one of the top receivers just through conversations, especially coming out of the draft. I just knew that I always do best when I see an opportunity at hand in front of me. And just based off of how the NFL works. If you're not one of the top receivers, and if you're not number one or number two, you got to be able to find a way to suit up as the top 5 receivers on special teams. So if that was just a way for me to get my foot in the door, that's all I really needed in order to be able to showcase my true skills and my true ability. So when I went to Seattle and they see me as a receiver, they might have been more shocked than ever to see what they was getting. But for me, like I said, I always knew what it was that I could do. The only thing was, everybody has different type of offense. You have a spread offense, you have West Coast, you have run gun. Like, you got different types of offenses that teams like to utilize, which causes receivers to run routes a little more different and a little more technique sound. But the way that we ran spread, it's all about getting to a spot. And so when you talk about releases, when you talk about being able to put a little more creativity in your routes, we couldn't really do that. And so that's what I mean when you run the spread. It's all about getting to a position as fast as you can, because everything is based off of timing. But, based off of the type of offense we run now, it's pretty cool because you give your receiver a little more freedom to be able to be creative in their route running, to be able to get themselves open, to be able to see schemes get you open. It's just a whole different type of offense that allows you to be versatile on so many different levels. And we've had that since I've been there, but this is the most freedom I've probably ever had, to be able to have a chance to really be the Tyler that I did at Kansas State and, high school and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. I'll say here, as we think about Kansas State, I remember your first touchdown against Miami. I remember your last touchdown against UCLA and all the times in between. And so it's just amazing to see the growth, right? I've seen it day in and day out. And so talk a little bit about what it meant for me and your dad, Kevin, to play at Kansas State, and how you felt about following some of the seasons we put together.
Yeah, well, I never really stressed or was worried about it until, you finally get there and you see how much people love you and you hadn't even did anything yet, or how everybody was comparing the two. And it was like, he's in the middle of this, he's in the middle of that. So, sometimes when you come in with high expectations off rip, it's very, very difficult to try to live up to that and stuff like that. But I think, my dad and you too, Uncle Aaron, did a great job in being able to help me try to find my own path and navigate through that. My mom had a big part of that as well.
Yep.
And so I think for me, like, I held on to my faith a lot more than I might have before. Like, that was the one thing that got me through, that allowed me to have peace to go out there and be able to play. And just being able to get the opportunities. Like I said, it was about timing. You had a lot of great guys that was on the team when I came in. You had Broderick, you had Chris Harper, you had Tremaine Thompson, you had Sheldon Smith. And a lot of them, they were all up there playing, before I even came up there. So not only did I kind of have to fit in and wait my turn, but special teams is what also got me in there when it came to being able to showcase what I could truly do as a receiver as well. And so I got better throughout the years. I mastered my craft, perfected my craft, and I learned how to make everything work based off of the tool belt that I was given at Kansas State.
Yeah, at what point along those lines did you feel like you really took over as your own man, so to speak? Like, I'm Tyler Lockett, I'm not Aaron Lockett's nephew, I'm not Kevin Lockett's son.
Well, I never really looked at it like that. I think sometimes you get lost in the wave because my grandpa would always call me Kevin or Aaron or Tyler or my twins, brothers or Sterling. There's times Coach Snyder called me the wrong name. So, that was always something that I think just kind of happened. I wouldn't say I really got out the shadows or created my own path when it came to the perception that people saw me. I just think if anything, for me, it changed when I kind of got a word from God to where I knew I was supposed to be there. So for me, everything changed at that moment. going into the third game against Miami. For a lot of fans, I can't speak for them, but I feel like everything changed when maybe in their head they considered that I surpassed my uncle and my dad. And maybe for them, that's when they finally gave me my own path. But until then, if I wasn't gonna be able to surpass them, then it would have always been comparisons and always been questions and stuff like that. But now it doesn't matter if my uncle was the best Lockett in special teams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now it doesn't matter if my dad was one of the best receivers when it came to Kansas State University. Like now, when I come in, it's not like how was he based off of his dad? How was he based off of his uncle? It's like now when they talk about me, it's like he created his own path.
What do you remember? In part, I asked this about the 2012 season because just recently, Kellis Robinette with the Kansas City Star and Wichita Eagle, he did this oral history piece where he was talking to, it's basically all the Wichita guys on that 2012 team, right? Like Arthur and Bryce Brown, Chris Harper, who you mentioned there, he was involved in that too. And they were just telling like what it is that they remembered most about that run that you guys had, where you wind up ranked number 1 in the BCS. The Baylor game happens. You do go to the Fiesta Bowl and finish one of the best seasons in K-State history with a Big 12 championship. What sticks with you the most about that year?
I think the biggest thing that stuck with me was just the fact that we played TCU. They threw me a bubble. No, it wasn't even a bubble. We played TCU, and out of all the plays that I could have got hurt on, it was me trying to block. And I got rolled up on. And it just sucked because my foot was hurting so bad that it was hard for me to prepare myself to even play the next game. And so, like, I tried so hard to get myself back. But even going into the game, I remember Chris was like, bro, if you can't play, just don't play. Because I could barely run. And, like, I still went out there and played because that's the type of player that I am. But I just wish, even if the circumstance wouldn't have changed, I just wish that I would have got to be out there playing as a healthy Tyler Lockett than a person that was injured. And maybe that could have changed the game. Maybe it wouldn't have changed the game. But, you know, I'll always end up remembering that game as they ended up beating us, and I really couldn't do anything physically to change the outcome because I was hobbling around the whole time.
And that was kind of the deal with the whole team, right? Like you guys as a team were just so beat up by that point in the year.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing was we knew that all we had to do was beat Baylor. Like, and that was just our mindset. We knew that we was going to beat Baylor. And not to talk bad about Texas, but, like, we knew that we were going to beat Texas because the whole conversation about Texas was they don't like to play in the cold. So we had them, we were playing them, I think, in December at Kansas State. And we knew that they were so focused on bringing warmer jackets and warmer benches and stuff like that. And we just said, we just got to get past Baylor and we're going to play Notre Dame in the national championship. And it just so happened that out of all the games Baylor wanted to get going, it was the game they played against us that really, you know, made us have to go to the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah. One thing I'll say, Tyler, when I think about the Fiesta Bowl, you played Michigan, and I remember 3 touchdowns. And I remember I was not at the game, but I was sitting at home, and every time I was jumping and cheering for you. And it's just one thing that always resonated with you is that we talked about it throughout your entire career, is we talked about consistency. And so people always ask about, how do people make it to the league? What's the biggest difference between college and professional sports? And I always talk about consistency. And so you've showcased consistency since you've been in the NFL. What has made you more consistent than anything, and what has kept you going on the straight and narrow since you've been in the professional football?
Yeah, I think what's helped me be consistent when it comes to the NFL, I think it was different than college. In college, I was looking forward to all the matchups that I was going against from my junior year all the way to my senior year. My junior year, I went against a lot of great DBs. The first one, I want to say his name was Marcus Williams, that came out of North Dakota State. Then all of a sudden, I was looking forward to going against Jason Verrett that year, who was projected to be a number 1 draft pick. I was going against Aaron Colvin, who was projected to be a number 1 draft pick, before he ended up tearing his ACL later on throughout the season. And so I think that's the same year that I was getting ready to go. I was going after Justin Gilbert. And so the more and more that you started looking at like the DBs that I was going up against, the more prepared that I was trying to make myself to be. And so it made me have to be like, okay, let me focus on the fundamentals. Andre Coleman was there to help with the fundamentals, and I really got to develop a different type of aspect of my game. But the coaches also let me like be the quarterback on the field and also tell them what I also saw and what could work for a lot of us. So that helped me there. When I went to the NFL, I would say the thing that helped me be more consistent was realizing that those first 2-3 years that I played, I wasn't going to get the ball like I did at Kansas State, where I got 12, 14 targets, stuff like that. Sometimes I'm lucky to get 1 target. And depending on if the DB was there or if it was a double team and the ball was in the air, I had to learn how to take advantage of that one pass that I was going to be able to get. And so it made me realize that, okay, even if it's a good throw, if it's a bad throw, if I'm double teamed, if the ball is in the air, or even if it's a throwaway, I got to try to make the best, I got to find the best way possible to be able to catch this ball, because this might be the only ball that's going to be in my vicinity the whole entire game. And so that taught me how to be consistent when it came to the ball coming my way, because there was games where, if I got the ball once in the first quarter, I was basically out there playing but watching the rest of the game. And so I had to learn how to make those plays count. And so I think that's what helped me to be more consistent, was not ever knowing how many catches or how many passes I was going to be able to get. So I had to focus on whatever came my way.
I would imagine, too, playing in college for a guy like Coach Snyder has to reinforce some consistency, because you're frankly not going to survive that program without being consistent. Well, what do you remember about playing for Coach Snyder? What resonates most with you from your experience there?
Yeah, I think playing under Coach Snyder, you start to realize how timely everything was. Everything was like time basis. We were literally under a military type of schedule. And when it came to school, when it came to football, when it came to curfew or going out and all that type of stuff, like everything was literally like based off of, you got to do this, you got to do this. If you don't do this, I will see you for PIs. You're going to get in trouble. And so I think what it really did was teach us, a lot of people, which is not surprising, but a lot of people don't live with their dads. And so I feel like the system that he created was a father that a lot of people never had. And so it taught them structure. It taught them how to be disciplined. And there was a lot of people that laughed out. And you're going to have that for whatever reason, but they weeded out the people who they felt wasn't going to be able to be a part of what we had going as a team. But it also brought people closer together, and it made us understand that there's consequences in every part of our decision making. And so with the little time that we had, which was free time, we learned how to make the best of that too. But now going to the NFL, I realized that how not strict it is. But I also understand, like, if you're late, a lot of teams you get fined. And there's a lot of stuff with that. Like, some people get fined for not having the right weight. If they expect you to be 200 and you're 192, you get fined for every pound that you're off. So, I mean,
no, I was
you said what?
I was one of those guys for not making weight.
I'm telling you. It is, luckily I haven't had to be a part of that or deal with that, but I think being at Kansas State and all the stuff we went through with the long practices, the extra running, after I made past Kansas State, my first practice at Seattle was rookie minicamp, And once we hit an hour and 30, they were like, practice over. And I looked around and was like, are we done?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, yeah, that was a good practice. I said, that's our break. I said, we're sitting down, getting Gatorades, getting Gator Lights, and we're about to go out there for another hour and a half and do the rest of our practice. And they were sitting there talking about, are we done? So at that moment, I knew, like, this is way easier than it was college.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, Todd, I want to transition real quick. And so let's talk about Sterling. So Sterling's next up. And obviously you and I have had the opportunity to see Sterling from elementary to middle school to high school. But give the world your scouting report on what you see with Sterling coming around with one more year to go in high school, and then he's transitioning to Kansas State after that.
Yeah, well, first off, Sterling will be taller than me and Uncle Aaron. That's the first thing that I can tell him. When it comes to footwork, since I've seen him, I went to a 7-on-7 and seen him, has really, really great footwork, especially from being able to watch him the last 2 years to now. Like, footwork is really good. When I watched him during the 7-on-7, he was catching the ball, like, extremely well. I know, like, one of the things he's working on is just being able to catch those tough passes, 50-50 balls, when the ball's up in the air and nobody knows who's going to come down with it. That's something he's already working on right now as he's stepping into his senior year. I'm really excited for him. I think he's getting faster. I think he understands how to be quick, how to use his explosiveness. I think he's really good at running routes early on than a lot of us were. The biggest thing, though, is it's just understanding I don't know what type of offense Kansas State really has. Mm-hmm. You know, so luckily for us, I mean, we all played under the same coach. Michael Smith was there when we were there at first, and we threw the ball a really, really good amount. In Kansas State right now, you know, they run the ball. You know, and so they still throw the ball, but it's not as much as he threw the ball. And so it's not so much. I honestly think he's going to be really, really good. I just think the only question is he going to be able to truly be able to showcase it if we run the ball a lot? If we throw the ball a lot, I think a lot of people are going to be happy with what they see, you know, with him being able to come in, with him being able to play. But also, I do understand now, with being in the league, that you have to be able to run the ball if you want to be able to win a Big 12 championship, to go to the playoffs. You got to be able to do both. And so I think if Kansas State can exercise both the run and the pass, it makes him being there a lot much more easier, because he won't have to deal with double teams or triple teams, because he knows that we have a great run game that can be able to allow him to get open as well.
Well, Tyler, I've got a couple of quick ones here. These can be quicker hitters for you. But the best catch of your college career, what would you say was the best catch of your K-State career?
You said on my K-State career?
We can do both. We'll go K-State and then NFL if you have that thought through.
Well, I think the best one in my K-State career was probably the one I did in spring game.
Yeah.
That was probably the best.
I remember that. I definitely remember that.
Yeah. NFL. I don't know. I had one against, I want to say, the Ravens. I had caught a one-hander, and then I got knocked out right after I caught it. So that was a really good catch. Or you can say the Rams went in the back of the end zone.
That was going to be my guess. And that also brings me to, I mean, that Pro Football Focus stat that came up. You've never dropped a red zone target. Like, how crazy is it for you to hear that kind of a stat?
Yeah, I don't really know if that's true or not.
Okay.
Good publicity is good publicity. I remember we played a game versus the Saints where Russ threw the ball. It was 4th down. I don't know where I was at on the field, but I dove and tried to get it with one hand because it was a little too far. And I almost caught it and reeled it in, but when I hit the ground, I didn't get it. And so I don't know. Maybe I was on the one. You know, maybe I was in the end zone. I don't know. But when I seen that stat, that was the first play that I thought about.
That's interesting. Well, hey, just don't send this podcast to PFF. I won't send it to them. We'll make sure that stays out there for you. Hey, appreciate the time again, man. And before we let you go, I guess one other thing I had jotted down here, and you rattled off some of the guys that you played with. Who are you still closest with from your playing days at K-State? Like, who are you still talking to most?
Well, I don't talk to a lot of people like I used to, but I still talk to Curry here and there. Still talk to Jake here and there. I talked to Ryan Mueller a little bit here and there. He actually hit me up a couple of days ago. He was at this burger place in Topeka, and so I forgot what it was called. Bobo's, I think.
Okay.
It was Bobo's. So he was over there eating. But I still talk to Deontay. Deontay lives in Texas. I talked to Stephen West here and there. Obviously, Dante was always my best friend. There's people that I'll still be in conversation with or keep in touch with. It might not be how it used to be, but sometimes we even play the game together. It just kind of depends.
Yeah. Well, finally, I mean, the hot topic in college athletics right now is conference realignment with Texas and Oklahoma bolting from the Big 12. And I will say I appreciated your energy that you were bringing on Twitter, poking some fun at Texas because, you guys destroyed Texas when you were in school at K-State. What's your reaction to all this been?
Let them go. If they want to go, let them go. Like, at the end of the day, I mean, it might mess up our conference and all that type of stuff, but the Big 12 was really good last year. I don't think anybody lost in the playoffs last year in the Big 12. I think we were undefeated, weren't we?
Boy, I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm about to put me flat-footed here. But yeah, what do you? I mean,
I thought we were.
Well, when you played Texas, did you guys feel like you had their number every single time you went out there on the field with them? Like, what do you remember about playing Texas when you were in school?
Yeah, I mean, we were more excited playing against OU. Like when we played Texas, we knew we were going to have to play, but I mean, it wasn't the same Texas that was like there when Vince Young was there. When it was like they were like the top of the crop. Like we don't know what happened or what, but when we were going to school, it was OU that was the top of the crop. It was TCU that was the top of the crop. It was Oklahoma State that was top of the crop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So even whenever I got there, we became the top of the crop. West Virginia was the top of the crop. Baylor was the top of the crop. They had RG3 and they, you know what I mean? They had so many guys. So, I mean, at that point in time when we were there, Texas wasn't at the top of the top. And so, I mean, but if OU and Texas want to go to the SEC, that's fine. Let them go. If they might get more recruits, they might, get more publicity, whatever the case is. But I mean, that just makes our chances of going to the playoffs that much more better. Like, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree. It's one of those things where, if you look at the players that's come from the Big 12, right? If you look at the Patrick Mahomes, if you look at the Tyler Locketts, if you look at the Tyreek Hills, none of them went to OU, none of them went to Texas. And so I think just alone, the Big 12 has produced enough talent that's been successful at the next level that I look forward to just looking at a conference. Whoever wants to come in is great, but we'll continue to produce good football. And from there, like you said, I'm looking forward to Kansas State playing against the top teams. They've always showed up well against the Texas and the OUs of the world. So just another opportunity for them to showcase their skills against whoever wants to join the conference.
Yes, sir. Well, Tyler, if you want to take more shots on Twitter, man, I'll retweet every single one of them. I'll just let you know that here on the way out.
So,
well,
I was just being honest. We could bring Notre Dame in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Well,
All right. Well, Aaron, do you have anything else left here for this guy before we get him out of here?
No, as always, he knows I know how to find him. So I'm looking forward to him playing year 7. Excited for what he's doing. proud of him from the bottom of my heart, right? I've seen him grow up, but he's doing it the right way. And he's making an impact on a lot of people's lives, and I'm proud of that. So just happy to be connected with him through family, and happy that he'll be my first guest, and we're looking forward to doing more.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Love you, Uncle Aaron.
All right, love you as well.
And
All right.
appreciate you too, Mr. Kurtz.
Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it, man. We definitely are thrilled that you were the first guest here. And again, the show is brought to you by 360 Vodka and Holiday Distillery. A big thanks to them for helping bring all of this to you. It's going to be awesome as we get rolling here throughout football season with the Lockett Up podcast. He's Tyler Lockett. He's Aaron Lockett. I'm John Kurtz. Thanks for listening today for the first edition of the Lockett Up podcast here on KCSN.